Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers, and in this video we're going to be looking at the Epix versus the Fenix 7. You're going to find out in a few minutes which one of those you should buy depending on what kind of runner you are. So comparing those key details then, well, the Fenix 7 comes in three screen sizes, 1.2 inches at 240 by 240 pixels on the 7S, 1.3 inches and 260 by 260 on the 7, and a 1.4 inch screen with a 280 by 280 pixel display on the chunkier 7X. The Epix has just one screen size, and that's an impressively bright and crisp 1.3 inch smartwatch style AMOLED display. An upgrade from the old Fenix 6, both watches now feature hybrid controls. You get the classic Garmin 5-button setup and some new touchscreen controls where you can tap, scroll and swipe some screens, but not all, so you will still need to use the buttons on both. When it comes to build and comfort, both have Garmin's big rugged adventure build. The Epix is slightly smaller, but it looks just like a Fenix. Both feature quick-release straps, and we tested the silicone straps in both cases of these watches. When it comes to heft on the wrist, the Fenix 7 series boasts a range of weights depending on the size and materials. The Fenix 7X Solar we tested came in at 89 grams or 3.1 ounces. That's compared to the Epix that came in at 70 grams or 2.5 ounces. The Fenix 7 is listed at 79 grams or 2.8 ounces, and the Fenix 7S comes in at 63 grams or 2.2 ounces. In terms of the features, these essentially carry the same suite of training, racing, recovery and general daily health tracking tools, the same maps and navigation, the same smartwatch features including Garmin Pay, offline music playback from Spotify, Deezer and Amazon, and that also includes all the new features like stamina, up ahead route following, virtual race predictor and those scrollable colour topo maps. What you don't get is solar charging smarts on the Epix, and only the Sapphire Epix edition comes with a multi-band GPS accuracy booster. Where there is a difference is on battery life. The Fenix 7S boasts 37 hours GPS that extends up to 46 with solar. The Fenix 7 is 57 hours GPS, 73 hours with solar, and the Fenix 7X is 89 hours GPS only, and that goes up to 122 hours with solar. The Epix, on the other hand, only stretches to 42 hours GPS runtime. You can squeeze more out of that in lower power modes, but it won't rival the Fenix watches that match it on price. Speaking of price, the Epix comes in two editions. There's a regular fibre reinforced polymer model that has a steel rear cover, and that comes in at £799, or for an extra £100 there's a slightly lighter Sapphire edition that packs a DLC finish and a titanium rear cover. There's also a pricier Sapphire version that comes with a leather strap and an extra silicone band included, and that's £999. That puts the Epix in the same ballpark as the Fenix 7 Sapphire Solar, the Fenix 7X. Those range from around £779 to £989. Only the Fenix 7X Sapphire Solar comes in pricier than the Epix. So first up, we're going to get into what these watches are like to use kind of day to day, what they feel like, basically the run test but living with. So Nick, what were your experiences and comparisons of these two bad boys?
So I guess in terms of the build, we should start by saying the Epix is the same size as the Fenix 7, the middle version, and we've been using 7Xs, so that's obviously a bit heavier than that, but you get a Fenix 7, that's going to be exactly the same, depending on what materials you opt for from the massive amount of options you have. But obviously what really stands out is the screen, and the Epix screen is gorgeous, and it's very striking that in all the conditions where you think, oh, maybe your screen won't be as bright if it's AMOLED, it's brighter, and it's easier to read on the run, it's easier to follow routes on the run, it's more enjoyable to interact with when you're kicking around at home. Yeah, the screen is a definitive upgrade. Now I've seen it, it actually has ruined the Fenix screen a little bit for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's one of those things, until you don't know that you really need it, until you see it, and now you've sort of seen it, and side by side it is a bit of a wow when you look at how kind of dull the Fenix screen looks by comparison, right?
The Epix, does feel like a Fenix in terms of the look. You're getting, obviously some different options in terms of the materials and the bezels and the options you can get there. But the screen is the thing that stands out. That's what is the big difference for me. You're getting touch screens. They're both always on displays as well. But in terms of the visibility where you want it to be strong, I think the Epix kind of holds up against that kind of transvective display you're getting on the Fenix as well. So all massive positives. If I had to pick between the two in terms of living with, I mean obviously we've had the 7X to live with. I would, because of that screen, I would probably go for the Epix over kind of a equivalent Fenix, just for that extra kind of vibrancy you're getting in the display.
So the screen does lead to a couple of, like, this, for example, the background on running is always now black on the AMOLED, which is fine. I think it's very, you tend to use white on the normal Fenix, but it doesn't matter. And there is a gesture to wake setting on the Epix. We haven't used that because the battery we'll talk more about has been pretty good. But yeah, if you are using gesture to wake, that obviously is a bit of a downgrade on the Fenix. So I would leave always on because you want just to be able to glance at your watch, see your stats.
So obviously one of those areas where that really bright kind of AMOLED screen comes into play most is around maps and nav. Now between the Fenix 7 and the Epix, you're essentially getting the same mapping and navigation tools, but the real difference is in how that's experienced, right?
Yeah, and I've followed routes on these and I've taken them on long runs, and the clearest way to explain the difference is that when I look at a watch, because I need to know where to go, I'm only looking at the Epix. It's brighter, it's easier to make decisions and see where the route's actually taking you. On that screen, it's simply just a little bit nicer, and certainly under tree cover in dull conditions, you get a lot of reflectivity on the Fenix. Now again, this is not to say this is a bad watch. I used the Fenix 6 Pro's maps for 2 years, and I thought they were the best thing I've ever come across. And then I looked at this, and I went, well, I only want to see it like that now. I only want to
spoil.
Yeah, because the contrast is just, that's the thing. When mapping, the key for finding route is contrast, because then things stand out, and the way stands out, and a river stands out, and the contrast is just a bit higher with those extra rich colours.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. In my runs, you look at one race and kind of see the mapping. And the mapping in terms of where it's putting you, all that stuff is you're getting kind of identical. But it's in terms of the detail of the mapping and being able to distinguish what things are around you. It's easy to do on that colour display on the Epix, and that was always something that I kind of noticed in terms of the rich information. You're getting similar information, but it feels richer on that Epix display for me.
So probably one of the biggest factors here when you're going to be making a decision between these two watches is going to be the battery life and the differences in the performance. What did you experience, Nick, between these two?
So yeah, obviously we've waxed lyrical about the screen, but that screen comes at a cost, and the cost is battery life. Now, the Epix has certainly got better battery life than I expected. I was, even with running every day, max, multi-GPS, the top GPS mode, notifications, I'm still getting 5-6 days of life. But, in the same conditions on the Fenix 7X, with a lot of fiddling, it's lasting 3 weeks. And, on individual runs, it's going to last, a lot longer. And you've got, extendable modes and stuff that can basically make this unkillable with the solar and stuff like that. Whereas the Epix isn't going to do that. It's more akin to, I guess, smartwatch style, but still better than a smartwatch. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's shorthand for me. It's kind of like a week versus a month, right?
Yeah.
It's how I kind of feel about it. My Epix kind of lasted me about 8 days.
Yeah.
About sort of 10 hours training, whereas the Fenix 50% burn rate for 2 weeks of kind of regular training. So I reckon I'll get a month at least out of the Fenix.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to get longer on the Fenix, ultimately. That's kind of what I experienced. But actually, like Nick, I was expecting to get less on the Epix, significantly less, and it actually wasn't that. I think you can get a solid week's worth of training. I think you can get a little bit more. You don't have that solar kind of support there on the Epix, so that's not there. But but ultimately, you need to be spending a lot of times outdoors to really get the full benefits of that feature and that extra battery numbers that you're going to get with that as well. But ultimately, if you want longer, the Fenix is going to get you that, even the kind of similar kind of size one with the Epix. But I think the Epix is strong if you want something for a week, maybe a little bit longer for kind of regular training, and all the other bits in between in terms of streaming music and smartwatch notifications, things like that. With that kind of going on in the background, that's kind of the performance that I found anyway.
Yeah, you can power everything on the Epix like I had. You can have the highest elect tracking. You can listen to music occasionally, and you're still going to get. You're going to have to. I have to charge it, like I say, every kind of 5 days, 6 days. But it's very clear what the choice is here, I guess, in a way. But I will say the Epix is good in that you can do a very long individual activity on it.
Yeah.
If you've got it charged and ready to go, even in the max battery mode and GPS, it lasts 15 hours GPS. You can reduce that a bit and still get very good accuracy and get longer. So it's not necessarily you're going to lose that one-off activity unless you're doing proper multi-day ultras, which case obviously you'll never be able to do them. But if you can go and do an ultra with it, it's just it's actually daily life where the difference is probably more felt. Like you say, it's a month versus a week or even less if you've got everything firing in all cylinders like I have.
And you've got those power manager modes on both there, so you can push them a bit further than you would if you just left them kind of in their default kind of settings when you get them out of the box. So you do have that ability to kind of get that kind of longer battery life if you kind of play around the settings as well. So that's there as well.
So one of the other things you're going to have to work out when you're using both of these watches is kind of the GPS settings, tweaking those power modes to extend that battery life that we've talked about. What was your experience of the GPS performance in the different kind of level settings, Nick? What did you find?
So I think we should start by flagging up on the base Fenix models. You're not getting the multi-band option, which is the new high level of GPS accuracy that watches are starting to provide these days. You are still getting, though, all systems on, which is all satellites at once, which is very, very good. And I think if you're choosing whether to pay for that or not, I probably would lean to not. But I've had these both. These both have multi-band options. I've had them both. I've been analysing tracks every single time. Just give a shout out to DC Rainmaker for his analyzer for me to pore over my GPS tracks, and they're both really good. I'll say that straight off the bat. They're both an improvement on what you get in past generation watches, like the Fenix 6 for me. They still will go wrong occasionally. GPS will always still go wrong. For me, and I think this probably isn't going to be something that I can state confidently is across the board, the Epix has been more accurate with multi-band on. It's actually been the most accurate watch I've come across. It's topping things like the Apple Watch, which has always been very good for me, later editions of it. But it hasn't been in a way that's affected. So for me, what I need from accuracy is on my lap pace, when I'm doing a hard rep, I need to know my pace is roughly correct. And on the Fenix 6, you'd often get quite big jumps, and it would have a little bit of a flake out in a slightly charming, lovable way, and it would always be kind of okay at the end of a run. But mid-run, it would sometimes frustrate me, and both of these watches have really been spot on. The Epix has been slightly better, but I wouldn't say that's an across-the-board thing. It's just in the case of the two watches I have, it's happened to be slightly better.
I would say same for me, really. I'm not from my experiences, they were all within a sort of 10% margin for error in terms of my runs. This isn't, for me, GPS accuracy isn't a deciding factor for me between these two watches.
Okay.
I think there are other things that are going to be more important when you're considering.
Yeah, same for me. I think my differences in terms of what they were tracking distance-wise, but felt accurate to me, and things like average pace, which things I would be paying attention to, those kind of core running metrics were very similar for me. So GPS performance across these two watches were very good for me, and that's and the fact that you've got that extra kind of support to improve that accuracy when it might be a bit more difficult to get that kind of pick up and the reliable data, I think you've got that there as well on both of these. So GPS performance for me generally was very good on both these watches.
So another area we're keen to sort of talk about on accuracy and compare these two watches is heart rate performance. Mike, what did you find in terms of these two?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much what I find with Garmin's in general, and actually just optical sensors that, for the kind of steadier runs, these watches kind of work well for me. But when I took them down to the track, I did some interval sessions against a Wahoo kind of ticker monitor. The kind of max heart rates were kind of hugely kind of off in terms, ridiculous. I would never kind of hit those kind of levels, but I think it was less so on the Epix, and I think maybe that comes down to the fact of the size. Obviously I was using the 7X against the Epix, and I think maybe that's a little bit to do with the kind of case size and getting a kind of really good strong fit in terms of that. But ultimately it's very similar in terms of what I've had in previous Garmin's, where grab a chest strap if you rely on heart rate training. Steady runs, it's fine on both these watches, but ultimately they can be a bit erratic in places.
Yeah, same for me really. The Epix has been slightly better. I think that's just the smaller form factor. Basically, I think the smaller watch across any brand tends to give you better heart rate. Actually, just fits a bit more snugly to my little frail wrists. But 100%, I use heart rate training. Use heart rate in my training to guide runs. I would only ever use heart rate training if I had a chest strap or at least an arm strap. So.
Yeah, I pretty much had the same. Some interesting things I found during interval sessions. I found that the Epix dropped slower than a chest strap, and the Fenix was a bit of a closer match, but overall, they could both be sort of slightly inconsistent against the chest strap, depending on which lap I was doing. They sort of were up and down a bit like a yo-yo at times. So yeah, chest strap all the way for me. I don't think there's much to distinguish between the heart rate performance between these two watches. The only thing I will say is that in my kind of non-workout, kind of day-to-day kind of heart rate tracking, that the Fenix tended to read slightly higher than the Epix. Obviously, that could have a tendency to skew some of the other metrics you're looking at, or some of the other kind of like body battery, potentially feeding into stamina, all those recovery things, all those kind of extra stats.
Yeah, definitely. I think I know even on like low intensity workouts like yoga and stuff, I think the Fenix would tend to skew higher.
So a couple of other little areas that we should probably cover off here. Done a bit of treadmill testing comparing both these watches. Post calibration, I had a similar experience on both of them. It was similarly bad. They were out by a reasonable distance compared to what the treadmill was telling me, Nick.
Yeah, same. I find with all watches on the treadmill, the accelerometer will work okay at kind of steady paces, but today I did like easy, then fast, then back to easy, and the distance is all out of whack. Calibrate it over time, maybe it will get better, but I think if you're using a treadmill, you've got all those numbers right there. Those are the real numbers.
Yeah, just follow those. The other thing in the gym, whilst talking about being indoors, do a lot of strength training recently.
Yeah?
Well,
Not me.
But I mean, I'm always interested in whether the auto rep counting and the strength training really works. And I've done compared both of these over a sort of bunch of different workouts, upper body, lower body, and they are, as ever, a bit hit and miss. The thing is, the Epix actually was a little bit more accurate.
Okay.
Actually, it tracked more of the different workouts or the different drills that I did with more accuracy. It was still a bit sketchy depending on what you were doing, but it was ever so slightly more accurate than the Fenix. So on to the all-important bit, then I'm going to ask you the simple question. You've got a few £100. Which one are you going to buy, Mike?
I would go for the Epix, I think. I do think that screen makes a huge difference in terms of experience. Day to day, just even outside of running, I think it's just nicer to use. But then when you are putting those kind of running features to test things like mapping and just being able to absorb your information, it just feels nicer. And ultimately, I'm not worrying about the battery life as well. You know, you're not thinking, well, you know, I'm going out running regularly, that I'm going to be hammering the battery life after a couple of days. It's got the kind of battery life that you would want to have from a watch, at least at the very minimum, I think. And so for me, if I had to pick and kind of look at the comparative kind of Fenix model against what you're getting in the one Epix model, I would probably go for the Epix, I think.
No, I completely agree. Like, battery life stresses for me are run to run, not how often I'm going to charge it kind of week to week. So this doesn't stress me out run to run. Same way, like I used the Apple Watch for a long time, it didn't stress me out. I knew it would last a day and I'd charge it again. This lasts longer than that. That's nice. And I think the screen's a lovely upgrade to have. Now, there's a bit of a price thing here. If you go for the base Fenix model, you're going to save a bit of money compared to the Epix and get more battery life. That makes it a slightly tough decision. Like, if money's no object, so I'm just buying the best watch in the world, which I think is probably one of these two watches for sports at the moment, I'm going to buy the Epix. I think I prefer the screen to the battery life.
I think I'm kind of the opposite of that. I think personally, I go for battery life over screen. Just the way I run. It's just what I want to do. I don't like to have to charge my watch.
Really hates it.
That often. I like, you know, multi-day ultras, those kind of things come into play a little bit for me. Doing long kind of day-to-day sort of runs where I'm going to be doing longer runs back to back. That's a consideration for me. I do also think, you know, I would probably be looking at going for a sort of slightly cheaper
the Fenix
one from the Fenix range over the Epix, which I think just that price is again is a little bit too high. Money, if someone was giving me £1,000 to spend, I still think I'd go Fenix, and it's less of an issue. But I think there's more than enough watch in most of the Fenixes at the lower end that most people can want over the Epix.
And you're getting all that functionality, aren't you, in the Fenix, the Epix? It is really about screen, and if that's something that drives you in terms of what you want in that experience, but actually the Fenix will still serve a lot of people very well, and you'll be able to live with that. The transfix display is still great. And
if you don't just buy the Phoenix,
don't
look at the Epix screen, and you don't know any difference.
Of course,
what you don't know can't hurt you.
I know we're 20 minutes into this review now. We have buried the lead because we forgot the torch. Only on the 7X.
Actually, I've changed my mind.
That's the one. That's a real torch. But if you don't need the torch, then the Epix. Or a cheaper Fenix.
So there you have it. That is our head-to-head of the Fenix 7 versus the brand new AMOLED Epix. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell. We've got loads of other videos on the channel around now and coming up about all of the new Garmin watches that are coming out, so you will get notified about them when they hit. Go and watch all the other full individual reviews as well.
Yeah, a lot more detail in those if you really want to dive in on the watches individually.
We're going feature by feature in those reviews. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon on the Run Testers.